In this lecture, I want to teach you how to do styling with Material UI. There are a lot of different ways on doing styling in React. Inline styling, styled components, styling modules, CSS in JS, plain CSS, and I've just named a few. So in this way, we'll be doing the Material UI recommended way of styling, and that is using something in between. Let me show you what I mean. Inside of source, components, next to our app.jsx, we're going to create a styles file. More specifically, styles.js. Inside of here, we're going to import something known as make styles from, that's going to be add MUI/styles. Now this is going to allow us to create a special style sheet, and let's immediately export it. So let's do export default make styles. We call that as a function that accepts a callback function in there, and we don't want to open a function block. We want to instantly return the styles object. Now we're talking about pure JavaScript. Whenever you have an arrow function and you want to instantly return an object, you need to wrap it in another pair of parentheses. That way, we don't have a function block, we just have an object that we're returning. So how can we actually write styles inside of here? Let's first import this into the app.jsx, and I'll show you what I mean. Inside of the app, we can import something known as use styles. And that's the thing we just created using the make styles. So we're importing use styles from /styles. Without the extension, just styles. And now, how do we use this? Well, we're going to use it as a hook. So right now we have to switch this from an instant return into a normal function block. So I'm going to do it like this, and then put this inside of the return right there. So we'll take the code, put the code inside of the return statement like this. And then finally we have the return. But before you press save, let's simply use this hook. That's going to be const classes is equal to use styles, and we just call it as a hook like this. We're just calling what we created right here, and that's going to give us access to our classes. So for example, let's say that our div needs to have a display flex and a height of 100%. We can do that by providing this div a class name and then saying classes dot, and let's call it root. Then if we go into our styles, we can simply create an object called root, and inside of there, we can say display is equal to a string of flex, and also height is equal to 100%. This is how we're going to be writing the styles. At the start, it might seem a bit awkward. We're writing CSS in JS, but later on, Material UI is going to give us a lot of new features, like the theme object that we can then use, and so on. So now we can actually make use of this root simply by applying it here. Now let's finish up the styles for this entire app. There aren't many. Right below this main, we're going to have a new div, which is going to be a self-closing div that's going to have a class name equal to classes.toolbar. There we go. You can immediately make it into a self-closing div by deleting the closing tag and then adding it right here. And finally, we want to also give a class name to our main, which is going to be equal to classes.content. There we go. Now we have all of these three styles, and we have to create them. So below the root, we're going to have our toolbar, and our toolbar is simply going to be a div that's going to have a height equal to a string of 70 pixels. And below that, we're going to have our content, which is going to have a flex scroll property equal to 1, and also a padding property equal to 2em. Now, there are a few things we can notice here. If a CSS property has two words, something like flex-grow, we're going to write it in camel case like this, flex grow. The second point is that if you simply have numbers, you can leave them as numbers, but you can also make them strings. So in this case, we're always going to use a string of 70 pixels, 2em, or so on. But with that said, our styles should now be applied. Let's go ahead and save it and take a look in the browser. There we go. You can see that our navigation bar is now at the full top left and our movies are spaced just a bit down to the right. Again, there aren't a lot of styles now, but as soon as we start implementing real components instead of these placeholder ones, we should see how it all comes together. Now that we covered styling, our next goal is going to be to create the navigation bar. So let's go ahead and do that right now.